So to start off, would you mind telling me a little bit about your background, kind of like what high school was like for you?
Oh, wow. That's going way back a long time. It's very interesting because it's a concept that y'all probably couldn't even understand now, but when I was in school, we didn't have air conditioning, if you can imagine sitting in classrooms. And I can remember sitting there like wishing I had toothpicks to put between my eyes like this, because in the middle of the summer and it's so hot. And when it's hot, you're sitting there and listening, and it starts sounding like teachers going, wow, wow. But I actually remember loving high school. It was again, as I said, very different because we didn't have computers. Air conditioning was not common at all. But the other part of high school that was very different is the expectations and the availability of what women could do when they got out of school was very limited.
Right.
And college was not even an option for most of the people where I grew up. I grew up in a rural area outside of Memphis, and we had little pockets of affluence where we had companies like Buckeye Chemical Company and DuPont, where children's fathers were research chemists and people in that level of income, and they all were assuming they were going to college. But I would say that probably 90% of the kids in our high school did not go to college straight out of high school. And I didn't. I was one of those that was not in the economic level that you just assume you're going to college. Right. You assume you're going to get a job.
Right.
And I had started dating my husband, and so I went to work for a bank immediately out of high school, though, which I think it would be very difficult to do now for somebody to get the same kind of job I had.
Right.
Because at the time they had, and you were asking about high school. High school was just a lot of fun. Everything was more like Mayberry RFD back then. But you knew all the teachers knew you, the principal knew you. And very interesting, I went back to high school, to my 40th high school reunion, and one of my teachers was there that was actually one of my favorite teachers. And I went up to him and I said, I'm going to test that wonderful brain of yours, Dr. Kessler. And he said, what? And I said, do you know who I am? He looked at me and he said, you're one of those beach girls. And there were four girls in the family, so he didn't remember which of the beach girls I was, but he could remember that I was one of the beach girls. Wow. And he was way on up in age. So
wow.
So it was very close knit. I remember just loving going to school. Yeah.
So did you grow up here in Athens?
No, I was outside in Memphis, Tennessee,
Okay.
in the rural area out from Memphis. Yeah.
Great. Well, I guess my next question is a little bit more broad, but what do you hope to change, if anything, in this, if you are reelected this upcoming year?
Well, I really don't expect change a lot as far as what I'm doing. It takes longer than 4 years to really have significant impact.
Right.
Although I feel like I've had a pretty significant impact already. But my emphasis from day one was to try to make our community image one of being business friendly, that we want businesses to locate here, but also that our communities and our citizens are of utmost importance. And we've added 2,500 jobs in the last 2 years. Our unemployment rate since I've been in has dropped from 8.3% to 5.1%.
Wow.
We've added huge amounts of money to our tax digest, which is the value of all the properties in town. Most people don't know what the digest is, but when you bring investment into your community that creates jobs, you're not only creating those jobs, you're also increasing the value of the property that you tax to take care of all those other things, the police, the fire, all of the essential services we have to have. And a lot of the things, like I said, it takes more than 4 years to see things to fruition. You don't see the evidence of it in that first term. Like for instance, the Caterpillar project that we did, which was bringing jobs back from Japan. And we've all been worried about outsourcing of jobs in our country, and this is one of the first instances of insourcing where we're getting jobs back from another country that had been outsourced. And that operation will, when it's finished building out, and they come in, they have to start their lines up, train their people, and also they don't just hire everybody immediately. Right now they've got close to 400 people they've already hired, and they're above average salaries, great working conditions, benefits, but they will be around 1,400 new employees in the community once they finish out their hiring. And then there are a number of places around here like that Ethicon, which is a biotech company, is investing $175 million in our community building an operation here that makes surgical sutures. Is their primary product that comes out of it. And this company, Ethicon, which is a division of Johnson & Johnson, makes the majority of the surgical sutures, the internal kind that dissolve in your body for the whole world. So if they had a fire or a flood or God forbid a terrorist attack or something on their plant that's in Cornelia, Georgia, and it shut down, most of the surgeries in the world that needed internal sutures would have to shut down.
Wow.
So they're building a plant here that's a redundant plant of what they have in Cornelia, and those jobs are going to be probably averaging $75,000 price range, which is something we don't have a lot of here.
So do you think that's going to help with the poverty rate in Athens?
Well, that the poverty rate is something that has been very interesting discussion, because when the poverty rate is based on census statistics,
right?
And when you look at the census statistics and you look at the number of people, the average wages, we have something like 38% poverty rate.
Right.
But that includes all the students who also say zero salary.
Right.
But it also doesn't include the benefits that people get. When you're looking at the income on the census tracts, you're only looking at hard dollars, how many dollars that person has in income. But it doesn't take into account housing subsidies, food stamps, subsidies for health care, any of those kind of things, any of the benefits that people get from the community. And so I doubt that we're ever going to have a significantly lowered poverty rate, primarily because cities just by nature draw people that need help.
Right.
I was at the Our Daily Bread this morning and visiting with some of the people down there, just talking. Don't get too nosy, but just some of them want to tell you their circumstances,
right,
where they came from and why they're here. And I had somebody that had come to Athens that's a single man, not a single woman, interesting, that has a 2-year-old, and he's looking for a job, but right now he's homeless and he's eating at the shelter. But he was drawn to Athens because he thought this was a place that he would likely be able to get a job and also get help raising his child. So you don't get that in the rural counties around us. So a lot of people are actually come here from out of state, but many of them are from our surrounding counties where services aren't available. So I think we'll always be a draw, and that's I've thought for a long time Athens has said, oh, we have this horrible poverty rate and hung our head like we were ashamed, but it's something that the fact that we draw people in for services in our community is not something to be ashamed of. We should be very proud of what we're offering here to help human beings. Project Safe is another perfect example. A lot of the people that Project Safe is taking care of are not originating in Athens. Some of them they bring here to put them into protective housing, but they come from maybe Winder or I don't want to single out Winder, Elberton, or some place where they know that there's no services there. So when a woman needs help that's being battered, the closest place you can go is Athens, and they come here, and very often they stay here, but they get the help they need to get back into a productive life. So the poverty rate is something that we never should quit working on, but it's never going to go away.
Well, you talked a little bit about the Suture Company coming to Athens. What do you think is the best way for us to improve our economy?
Well, the best way to improve our economy, and it's working because it's what I've been doing, is to make on a national level and even an international level, have the reputation that your community, that we have the resources, we have the workforce, we have things in place to attract these businesses to come in here. And when you come in, we're going to work with you so that you can be here, because the only way you improve the economy is by creating jobs. And of course the thing is jobs do no good unless you have an educated workforce to fill those jobs, and they're not even going to come unless you have the educated workforce. Which brings me to what y'all are involved in your school. I was over for the groundbreaking, and those new improvements at Clark Central are phenomenal.
Yeah,
but we have I think we have a wonderful school system here, and we're turning out quality students. but one of the sad things is that so many of you leave Athens to go to work. A lot of it's not because you can't find jobs, it's because of adventure. You know, you've always been here. You want to do something different. But then, you know, later on you might want to live in Athens and can't find a job.
Right.
So working on those jobs and getting high quality, good jobs in our community is extremely important.
Well, you mentioned the schools. Do you think anything needs to be changed as far as education goes in Athens, or do you think that things are going pretty smoothly?
Well, I think a lot of change needs to happen. But the change is in the process of happening, because you can't just wave a wand and make everything perfect. Yeah. But one of the things that's happening in our school systems is for many years you had middle class flight from the school system here, and that people were moving to other counties. They were putting their kids in private schools, in Athens Academy, Athens Christian School.
Right.
But now you're starting to see the confidence in our schools come back, where middle class families are coming back and putting their children in school. Children in schools, knowing that those children are going to get a good education and that they're going to be safe and happy and productive.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is due to our superintendent. I think Dr. Lanou is probably one of the most awesome human beings I've ever met. But I've never seen anybody with more passion for children and making sure they all get what they need. So.
Well, what are some of your goals for education?
Well, of course, the mayor. What I can do is be a cheerleader for Dr. Lanou, but also, you know, making myself available to go into schools, making myself available to y'all today, so that you get to have that interaction with your local government, feel comfortable. Maybe one of the three of y'all might be a mayor one day, simply because you came in and saw what, you know. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be rich or have a great education to be a public servant. You just have to have that public servant's heart and want to do it. But as far as what I'd like to see in education, I work with whatever it takes, and our goal is for every child in Athens, Clarke County to be on the road for post-secondary education by 2020. But the thing is that you have to start with not just kindergarten, but pre-kindergarten, when children are born, working with their families to make sure their families understand what those children need to nurture them, because we have so many families that don't understand that.
Right.
But that would be my goal, is for every child here to have the availability of a post-secondary education. And every student that graduates from a Clarke Central or Cedar Shoals may not want to immediately go to college.
Right.
But if they've got a really good foundation coming out of high school, there are places that they can go. They'll be employable and can make a decent living. And some of them may be like me, go back and get a degree just before you were 50.
Right.
I finished my bachelor's degree just before I was 50, and had.
Wow.
I told you that when I came out of high school that was not an option.
Right.
And so I married, raised my family. I was actually going to college the same time my kids were.
That's very cool. Well, you mentioned Project Safe. What would you like to see in Athens as far as ensuring public safety, those types of things?
Well, I think we're doing a good job in public safety. We have an extremely professional police department. We're building a new jail, which I wish we didn't have to do. That's a lot of money that and of course it's paid for under special local option sales tax. But a lot of things are happening in Athens as far as criminal justice is where we are trying to deal with the whole person, not just throw them in jail and throw the key away. One of our judges, Judge Kent Lawrence, was a state court judge, and he started something called accountability court. And it started out with alcohol, and now it's a drug court, and then there's also a mental health court. And just recently a veterans court's been opened up. And what these accountability courts are is that when somebody comes in for a violation, they're given an opportunity, and they don't do it with every person, because every person's background or prior records don't lend themselves to that. But like you get a DUI, this is your first DUI. You go in, the judge talks to you, and he thinks that you have the capacity to go into this program and finish it. And you go into a program, it's intense counseling. You have to come back very frequently for urine tests to make sure that you're not using drugs or alcohol. You have to have a job, and it's accountability. You have to be accountable, and it lasts 6 to 9 months, so it's not an easy program to go through. But when you come out of it, instead of having been booked in jail and having a jail record and a felony record, it's as if it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that is an absolutely awesome. In fact, they're having a graduation this afternoon. I'm going to of some classes that are coming out of that.
It's very cool.
But also the peer court that I'm sure y'all are familiar with that, and that to me is an absolutely wonderful program, because a lot of the things that young people do when they're still in high school, it's just stupid. I mean, it's just not thinking. But when you're working with people, you're with your peers, people your own age, that understand the emotions, all of the extemporaneous things that are going on around you, and I was talking to some of the people that work in peer court, some of the students, and it sounds like y'all are probably tougher on than the courts might be. But the thing is again, it's trying to put somebody on the right track to get them to change their behavior before it's too late and before they get a record that falls in the rest of their life. But there, we have a program in our jail here that a GED program where while they're in jail they can be working on GED.
That's really great.
And so there's a lot of things going on law enforcement wise that people don't even know about. They think of law enforcement just being that police officer in the uniform driving around the car, but and our police officers get a sensitivity training. You know, they work with abused women, with children that have been abused and things, and they get the training to be able to do that professionally and do it well.
Mm-hmm. Well, kind of going with the same subject, and this kind of relates to a lot of our peers. What is your stance on possession of small amounts of marijuana?
Well, it's been talked about a lot in the paper, so
yeah, it has.
So y'all will probably get it right. and my position is I would like to see an ounce or less of marijuana possession be decriminalized, so that not made legal.
Right.
It would still be a civil penalty on it. You know, it needs to be significantly fined with people that there needs not only if you don't have the ability to pay the fine, but I think everybody should have to do community service somehow that's related to that. But that you need to have an opportunity like peer court to not have that follow you the rest of your life, because there are so many lives that are ruined by it. But it's also putting a heavy burden on our court and our public safety system and our programs. And then the medical marijuana, to me, is just a no-brainer. It's just unconscionable for us to have the ability to relieve pain and suffering, and we don't do it just because it is a derivative of marijuana.
Right.
The one that just failed in the state legislature, one of my daughters is a state legislator in Atlanta, Margaret Kaiser, and she was one of the sponsors on the medical marijuana bill that would have allowed the marijuana oil to be used. For those children that are having seizures that nothing else has worked for, you know, and it failed not on its own merit, but because something unrelated was attached to the bill at the last minute. But I'm hoping that one will pass, and I think it's something we need to be very cautious about, because you don't want to give the impression that it's okay to smoke a joint, because you still might mess your life up.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But if somebody's experimented and they've got 1 ounce, I just don't see that being allowed to give them a felony record that follows them forever.
Right. Well, moving on from that, how do you kind of plan to continue to make Athens more environmentally friendly, more environmentally sound?
Well, interesting enough, because I talk so much about business development, people don't think I'm an environmentalist, and I'm probably one of the first environmentalists. I recycled before people even knew what recycling was. I'm a fanatic recycler, but we've implemented the single stream recycling during this term. I expect that to continue. We're building what we call a charm facility, which is hard to recycle materials that people can drop off, mattresses and appliances and computer equipment things at that facility to keep that out of the waste stream, and keeping the landfill, extending the life of the landfill is one of the best things we can do for the environment, because it's very expensive, very difficult to build more landfills. So we're going to continue in that route. We are in a lot of things. I am not taking full credit for them, but I'm taking credit for supporting the continuation of them. But we have a program to reduce energy use in our county, and so we're changing out to LED lights, and we've got some Prius cars in our police fleet. So we're doing those things to be environmentally friendly. Trying to think of some of the other things. One of the things that's very important for your generation is that we're purchasing tracts of land and keeping them in pristine condition, where they're in irrevocable trust, land trust, where they will forever be untouched natural land.
Mm-hmm.
And the most recent one was out on Tallahassee Road, where it was, I believe, 310 acres.
Wow.
That has been purchased by the county through with SPLOST funds, with some other county funds, and some private investment supporting us on it, and set that property aside so it will never be developed. So there'll always be good green space, helping with oxygen, and but also with our mental state, because when you're totally surrounded by brick and concrete, it's not a very mentally healthy environment either. Mm-hmm. But of course, our greenways, our sidewalks, all of those are things that are trying to get our people out into the world, walking, exercising.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm kind of curious, what sparked your initial interest for running for mayor?
That's quite interesting, and it goes back to 2 or 3 things that we've already talked about. Mm-hmm. Is when I was making a decision to run for mayor, my husband always asked me not to do it, and he died 8 years ago, and I didn't run because he died, and he would have supported me if I'd wanted to. He just thought it was an awful, thankless job. Mm-hmm. It's the best job in the world. I absolutely love it. So, and that was a great surprise, because I was looking at doing a public service, giving my time to the community, and my expertise, because I have a lot of background that's valuable to our government. Mm-hmm. But I never expected to fall in love with it. But what prompted me to run basically was that I felt like we were sort of getting off course of where we needed to be, and constantly in the news media we heard talk about our failing schools, inadequate schools. We're business unfriendly. Nobody wants to locate here. There was a third factor that I'll come back to it just a minute. But I wanted to change the conversation in our community, where when you're the poverty rate was the third one, because I said we'd already talked about the poverty rate. And if you're looking at a place to relocate or bring a business, and you're doing your due diligence, and all that's done on the internet, and it's done long before they ever come and see what a wonderful community Athens is, and you look at it and you say, gosh, 35% poverty, bad schools, business unfriendly. Why would we want to go there?
Right.
But even as an individual, we've become a retirement destination now for people to move here, and we've become lots of firsts since I've been in office. I've been in office the best place for good food, the best place to retire, the best. We've gotten so many bests. But you don't get that when your headlines are full of negative things.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do was change that conversation in our community and talk about what's good in our community, and present us in a more positive image, and I think I have.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're very passionate about this job and about Athens. I guess just in closing, would you mind telling me why you think you're the best candidate?
I forgot that this was an interview with candidates, because I love this community so much, and I love students that I get to talk to you and forget the purpose of it. Well, why I'm most qualified? Well, basically my experience, both my life experience and my work experience. I have been involved in running a couple of small businesses, but I was the first woman elected to office in Athens, and I took office in 1980 on city council and served 5 years as city council, and in that job I interacted with people all over the state. I actually was president of the 10th district of Georgia Municipal Association when I left the council, and then I served for 26 years as tax commissioner, which is probably one of the most important jobs in the community, because next to law enforcement, because if you don't handle the county's money well and don't bring those tax revenues in, the county can't run.
Right.
But it made me have a really good understanding of the financial part of government, but as a mother, but then that was the professional experience. But I also was very involved from the day I came to Athens over 45 years ago in nonprofits and in volunteer work. And it started with PTA and with my community association. I helped start the Athens Area Emergency Food Bank basically the first food storage for it was in my garage.
Mm-hmm.
And the Northeast Georgia Food Bank, which is the big food bank out on Newton Bridge Road, grew out of the emergency food bank. But I'm still on the board of the emergency food bank. I got off the board of the Northeast Georgia Food Bank because they sometimes ask for grant funds through the county, and it would be a conflict of interest. But
Right.
the emergency food bank never does. I was one of the founding members of the Child Abuse Council, Prevent Child Abuse, and I've been involved in so many nonprofits and organizations here. I'm active in the Interfaith Hospitality Network, which if you're not familiar with, and your readers may not all be, and it's where the downtown churches actually turn Sunday school rooms during the week into bedrooms for people to stay in, and they stay a week at each church. And I'm one of the people that's called on to spend the night when we're hosting it in my church, First Presbyterian, across the street. And one of the reasons I'm in First Presbyterian is because of the social responsibility. But going back to life experience, I have 4 children. And as I told you, when I came out of high school, there were not a lot of options for women as far as careers. And all the time my children were growing up, I used to tell women's groups when I talked to them, if you've been a mama, you can do anything. You just add more zeros to the budget, and more maybe more human beings into the mix. But everything that you do as a wife and mother running a household are the same things you do as a CEO of a company or the mayor of the community. That all those papers over there on my desk on the end of the table are budget papers. I'm working on the budget now, and when you're looking at the budget, you're dealing with allocating scarce resources. Same thing when you're at home. You're looking at, okay, this is how much money we have. This is how much money we need,
Right.
or we want, and we've got to figure out what's need and what's want, and make that balance. And that's why I was involved in some small businesses. I created things to do where I could be at home with my children. I did accounting from home. And I did clothing design and alterations and things that I could do from home and be with my children. But they were real businesses that you were doing all those same things with the resources and the time and all that. So you have to schedule your time. You have to schedule your resources. You have to balance all those personalities of those 4 children and the husband and wife. So everything you do in managing a family are the same things you do in government and business, just with more zeros.
Well, thank you so much. That's all I have. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that maybe I didn't ask about? Well,
you also asked about my qualifications, and I'll elaborate just a little bit more. And that's the 4 years that I've been here. I had a lot of background experience when I came into the government about how things work and what worked and what didn't, and I understand all the different pots of money that are in government, and that's something that I can tell my opponent really has no concept of by statements he's making. Like, for instance, he referred to as there is an enterprise zone fund, and I think $144 million or something like that, and 1% of that would take care of the transit system. But there's not an enterprise zone. There are enterprise fund. There are multiple enterprise funds. There's one for the airport. There's one for solid waste. There's one for landfill, for the public utilities, water and sewer, and the reason they are enterprise funds is that all the money that comes into that fund stays in that fund. You can't take money out of the water department and send it over to the landfill or to the buses, and so. But I understand how the budget works. I understand who does what, and I had some of that understanding before I was mayor. And I thought I really knew a lot about the government. What I've learned in the last 4 years I felt like I was being fed information through a pressure water hose or fire hose.
Right.
So that again is this, and the thing is results matter, and I think if you look at the results of where we are now, and those results are, you look at our community. Our community is. I think it's actually cleaner. I have an emphasis on maintaining our streets and our communities, protecting them, having community protection, make sure that people aren't trashing our neighborhoods. And I have a lot of involvement in that, bringing the jobs, the unemployment rate coming down, and balancing a budget. And we're still somewhat struggling financially because even though the economy's getting better and the unemployment rate's down and and we've created jobs, there's always a lag in the time that it takes for it to come into the government.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just now getting to where we're flat. We were negative, now we're coming back to being flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit easier to work on the budget this year than it was the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, thank you so much
thank
for
you.
taking the time.
You
to
are
talk
so
to us
welcome.
today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you were such a good interviewer and so well prepared and so
Thank
smart.
you.
You know,
Thank
so.
you.
She's done a good job.
Yeah, you did. She did.
Very proud of her.